welcome to the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, episode number 3. Got David Kubiak on the show today. This is going to be a real fun one. If you guys don't know Kubi, you're going to get to, and if you do, you know you're not going to want to miss this one. We get into all sorts of stuff about his career and the interesting path he's taken to get to where he is now. Maybe some breaking news, maybe later on in the podcast, about where he'll be spending his 2020 season. And we get to know David Kubiak, the person. A lot of people probably have not gotten to do that, and we got to chat with Dave about his personality and his life off the field as well. So this is going to be a real fun one for you guys. I can't wait to bring it to you. And without further ado, here it is, the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast, episode number 3 with David Kubiak. One of my very good friends here on the 3rd installment of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. I've got David Kubiak for everybody here. This could be interesting. We might need to get the bleep button out, but Kubi, let's see how it goes, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little ticked off. You had Lucas Irvine on before me, but I guess I'll get over it.
Well, I guess let's get right into it, man. I asked Irv about his experiences with you back in the day in the Rays organization. I guess what was a young Irv like back in the day?
He was a quiet, which is kind of unbelievable, but he was a very snark-commented, salty college baseball player. But I obviously told you what happened. We ended up, he was literally probably one of the first people I met walking off the plane down there, and just so happens he's one of my best friends. So it was definitely a weird but good introduction. He's, like I said, he was a salty day. He's still a little salty, but he's getting a little bit better in his old age.
I hear you. That experience in the Rays organization, I'm curious about that, because I look at the numbers that you had there, and excellent, and you kind of would expect more and more to kind of come out of the stat lines there. I guess what ended up happening there?
Man, your guess is kind of as good as mine, but they told me, it's just the baseball business and numbers game, and at that point getting released, I kind of thought my baseball career was over, but obviously not exactly yet, but it was good. I had a great experience. It was a great organization. I think Luke said there's a lot of good people in that organization. It just came down to numbers, man, and I understood. I understand now. I guess I didn't understand as well back then, but I thought I did well enough to stick around, but like I said, numbers say otherwise.
Yes, get drafted out of the State University of New York at Albany, and not a lot of guys got drafted out of there. Nobody really out of your time in college got drafted out of there besides yourself. I guess what was the experience like over there?
It was cool. It's funny because I tell people all the time, I went to University of Albany. They're like, they don't really know where it is, and I say, it's in Stony Brook's conference, and everybody, okay, all right, I got you. So, but yeah, it was great. It was a big school. I had a great time. Met a lot of awesome dudes on my team, but yeah, it wasn't. The America East isn't exactly known for its baseball. It's more a lacrosse conference, but yeah, I tricked some people and snuck into the draft.
Yeah, your numbers in college, they were okay, but you weren't blowing anybody away back then, I guess. Was it more kind of scouts seeing like a big projectable, like lanky kid, or what were the kind of conversations you were having with scouts back then?
Yeah, I think it was more, they just kind of knew, I had the talent, I guess. I'll be a little honest, I didn't work as hard as I probably should have in college, so I think my numbers reflect that a little bit, and I kind of let myself go a little bit on a little bit of talent I had, and it worked for a little while, but once you get the pro ball, the cream starts rising, and those guys thin out, so I kind of had to change my ways a little bit,
Yeah. I know between the Rays and Indy Ball, there was that brief stint with the Braves, but I guess what was the path that kind of ended up getting you into the Frontier League?
So yeah, I went to the Braves for probably, like I said, a month. I was down and extended. I was told I was going to Rome. I stayed down and extended for like a month and a half, and ended up not even pitching in a official game for them. Just some simulation innings and stuff. But I think at that point I was still kind of, I was working hard. I understood I was a was trying to be a professional athlete, but I guess the drive wasn't fully there yet. And then I went to the Frontier League and kind of did what a lot of other, guys that had gotten drafted that go to indie ball and were kind of, nose up to, I'm too good to be here, blah, 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 And I had an okay year my first year in the Frontier League, and then I got released from the Frontier League. So whose nose was up then? I mean, but yeah, I ended up, I'll get into a little bit more before you even ask about it. I took a year off after that and just kind of tried to figure out what I was going to do and figured out if I was going to keep playing, I kind of had to invest myself a little bit, So I took the year off, got back in shape, and I guess the rest is history. In the Frontier League, I spent about two and a half seasons in the Frontier League.
Yeah.
Something like that. With the Southern Illinois Miners, the Otters were actually first, and then I stayed mostly with the Joliet Slammers, and that was still one of my favorite times playing baseball. I mean, it was as much as it's stunk being in Middle America, and no offense to anybody who lives in the Midwest, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But it was a great, baseball, and the guys that were on the team were great, so it made it worth it. It was good.
So the year off, you brought it up. Were you working then? Were you kind of thinking maybe this is what life after baseball is going to be like? Are you always kind of striding to get back? What is that year like?
So I was, kind of, I couldn't find a job in 2013. The Frontier League had released me out of spring training the year before, so I didn't play the whole year coming in. There was at 13, I think, and I didn't know what the future held, if I wanted to keep going, and so I ended up getting a job at a hedge fund in Manhattan, Moore Capital. Wore a tie to work every day. It was pretty off-putting, as Irv would say.
Hard to picture you in a suit and tie, Kubi.
I've been told I look good in a suit and tie, I'll tell you that, but yeah, it's not really my thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got plenty of miles left to go here in the career, but did that kind of prepare you for maybe something you might like to be doing when baseball's done?
Yeah, I definitely like the business world. The little bit of a rat race of, being at the bottom and trying to get your way up to the top is a little tough, and my ego didn't really like that because, I started at the bottom of baseball, and once you do a little bit, you think you're owed something, and I was young, dumb, and full of what. I kind of just, I really wasn't thinking about a plan B. It was just kind of something to do while I figured stuff out. But, I definitely didn't mind it. I like the business world. It's cool. I think I have a pretty good personality to interact with people. So, we'll see what happens with that. But like you said, I'm hoping I got some miles left.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly get to that, but I do want to ask you a little bit more about that Frontier League stint. Mid-20s, Joliet, Southern Illinois, you're pitching your ass off. The numbers speak for themselves. Does frustration start to set in at any point? And I know it has later on, but has it set in at any point during that time that, I'm not getting an opportunity here?
It did a little bit. I realized, the Frontier League is kind of, I'd say, A-ball to maybe the bottom half of Double-A talent-wise, and I knew I was an older guy, so I was kind of supposed to have good numbers in the league, which, I understood, but yeah, I did have some pretty good numbers, and you can ask Rick Teasley, actually, who's got the best numbers in the Frontier League. I don't know if he's going to have the right answer for you, but we'll maybe we could talk to him about it when you get him on. But yeah, it was frustrating, but at the time, I was just having fun playing baseball and realizing that I didn't have to go to work every day, so it was cool to me. And I guess at that point, my plan was that the Atlantic League would have been the next step, which thankfully it was. So.
Yeah, so what is the process to go from Joliet to Bridgeport? I guess, how does that all kind of work out?
So my pitching coach, my kind of advisor, the guy who I still talk to today, Paul Gibson, he was I think 8-9 year big league guy, born in Center Moriches, I started going to him for pitching lessons when I was about 13 years old, and I'm pretty sure he's a national cross-checker now for the Royals, or works with a bunch of organizations anyway. He actually, it was tough to get a look, to get into the Atlantic League, especially at the time when I came in 2016. It was kind of, if you didn't have some serious AA time or at least, AAA time, you weren't going to get a sniff in that league. So I had, Paul ended up knowing, what's his name? Paul. There's another Paul up in Bridgeport. He was the GM at the time.
Paul Herman.
Paul Herman, great guy. But, so he put a call into Paul to say, it'd be nice to give this guy a shot, blah, blah, blah. And things ended up happening. Then I went to Bridgeport kind of on it was almost like a tryout basis as a favor for Paul. And Paul Herman will tell you that if you ask. Because I remember, the money is not big in the Frontier League, but at the time that I was at the back end of the Frontier League, I was making almost the league max in the league. I think it was like $1,400 or something like that. And I came to Bridgeport, and Paul, said, we got $1,000 for you. And I kind of said, I said to him, like, listen, man, I'm not looking for, $2,000, but I'd like a little more, taking a hit from me. He goes, I'll never forget this. And this is at the time, I'm sure he didn't know either. He didn't mean anything by it, but he said, we don't usually give money to guys that we're given a shot at. Yeah. It's kind of downplaying stuff a little bit. So I guess that stuck with me a little bit with them. But yeah, that's kind of how that happened. I had a friendly call put in, and luckily I got a spot.
Yeah, what is that spring training like then, where you pretty much have to compete for a spot? I mean, you went from being a big fish in a smallish pond to being a smaller fish in a bigger pond, no pun intended with the bluefish there. But what is that spring training like?
Eye-opening, especially when you're sitting next to your locker mates, David Carpenter, who is, first of all, one of the better people I've ever met in baseball. Great friend of mine, just absolute beauty of a human being.
Awesome guy, absolutely.
Awesome guy, and it's a little, it's a little eye-opening to be sitting next to a guy who you just watched in the playoffs the year before, and you're sitting next to. I got Andy Chavez on my team, who I've watched this kid since I was 10 years old. So it was a little OSHI, you know what? Am I supposed to be here? But yeah, I've kind of I guess pitched with that little chip on my shoulder for a little while now, and it's just kind of what I brought there. I just figured act like you belong here, and maybe you'll stick, and luckily I did.
Yeah, I know you pretty well, but I did have to do some research on this whole thing, and I saw that you pitched in the game that Clemens was managing for the Bluefish.
I did.
Yes.
I did. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, what was that experience? Was that nerve-wracking at all? I know it's kind of like a guest managed thing, kind of like a first show thing. Was that nerve-wracking at all to kind of pitch in front of a guy like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was 26 years old, and he's coming out talking to me like I'm going out there to pay. I mean, he watched my. He was great. He didn't sit in the clubhouse until he had to be out there, and he was very interactive with us. He was an awesome dude. But I mean, he sat there watching my bullpen the whole time before I went out, and I don't think I threw a strike. I swear to God, and I remember him looking at me afterwards. He goes, "Don't worry, there ain't that many people here," and I was just like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, the Bridgeport experience as a whole. I know I've kind of jokingly spoken negatively about the whole experience there. And as a guy who was there for a year and pitched in that yard and kind of was in that whole atmosphere and that experience, what was it like for you?
To me, coming from the Frontier League, you're not really used to the greatest of amenities and all that stuff, and post-game spread is going to be the stuff from the concession stand and all that. So to me, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was almost quote unquote big league to me for coming from the Frontier League. I mean, I come in the locker or the clubhouse every day, and there's even though it was just little bags of chips and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, they got food for us out already. That's cool. So it was, to me, it wasn't, the first year, I was there, and then once you see the other clubhouses in the league, you get a little bit like, oh, this isn't exactly like everybody else's. But I have to say, for what they had, which wasn't much, and I don't think the city really helped out too much with them, but they tried to do a great job, and I always felt comfortable there. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but I thought Paul did a great job with what he had, and like I said, I had a good time. It was sometimes when you come on to rosters like that, you get some salty old vets who, like I said, might be their first time in indie ball, and they're just not really thinking they need to be there. But luckily, we didn't have any of those guys. I mean, Endy, Endy, he's amazing with younger guys and talking to guys and making sure guys don't feel like they're, not on his level or anything like that. I spoke about Dave Carpenter, but there's a ton of guys on that team that were really helpful in, just kind of bringing me up to speed, I guess.
Yeah. The story of getting to Somerset. I remember that there was talks to come back to Bridgeport. Bridgeport obviously really wanted you back. How did it all kind of unfold? You ended up coming to Somerset.
So at the time, my grandmother was obviously, most of my family is from that central Jersey area. And my grandma, she wasn't like on her last leg or anything, but she was having some health problems and getting older, and it was kind of nice for me to be able to be down there. So that was like my first reasoning for asking Paul for the trade, because I had talked to John a little bit about it. But yeah, he would tried to get me back. They wanted me back. We couldn't really figure anything out, and not that I was not that I really cared, but Paul kind of he just let me go. You know what I mean? It was he could have held on to me and made it difficult to leave, and I'll always be grateful for that, because I mean, he didn't really get much back, obviously, for letting me leave, but I think he understood that my family was from the area. It was just easier for me, so just kind of worked something out with John, and I had a pretty decent year against the Patriots the year before, we'll say, and I guess John and Brett were pretty excited to have me.
Yeah, how much easier does that make it? How much kind of pressure does it take off, or does it put pressure on when you're kind of around family more and getting to pitching around more of people you know?
Well, I'll tell you, financially, especially being in the Atlantic League, it's nice to have my cousin, God bless his little heart. He's got a house down in Belmar, and he's a single guy. He's about a year younger than I am, I think, and I've been living with him. He's an engineer, so he's not exactly hurting for money. So luckily, I got the family discount of free staying at the house. That takes a lot of pressure off, because I know a lot of guys in the league. It's tough to maneuver that area, but that makes it great. And I don't know, I'm not pressure-wise pitching. I don't really care who's watching. It's just baseball. If I stink, I stink. But my mom's still gonna be there at the end of the game to give me a hug. So it's all good.
Yeah, I know you went to Venezuela kind of the off season before, but it feels like 2017 is when the travels really kind of started for you. I know Taiwan was that year. What is the last couple years kind of been like in terms of just being a whirlwind and getting to go to all these crazy places?
Yeah, it's a pretty good word. Whirlwind is hitting it right on the head. Taiwan was great. It was a totally different experience. You felt like you were on Mars. Just culture-wise and not being able to speak to a lot of the guys. But I'm not too picky with food, so that was kind of cool. It was I tried some weird stuff out there. But
what was the weirdest thing?
Probably I'm not exactly sure how they prepared it, but it was pig intestines that they pickled or something, then threw on the grill and did all this. They didn't tell me what it was until afterwards, thank God. But yeah, that was kind of weird. I'm trying to think of anything else real weird. I'm a big sushi guy, so nothing really scares me octopus wise and seafood stuff. But yeah, that was probably the weirdest thing.
All right, but Venezuela too. You were talking about Mexico. You've been around too.
Venezuela was. I went down there the first year, I believe, was 2016.
Yep.
And that was. I think the year before they had kind of had a tough time as a country, but it was really starting to get bad once I went down there in 16. But it was, the Latin culture is unbelievable. The food, people are amazingly friendly. They love drinking till like 7 in the morning.
Doesn't sound so bad.
No, it's not too bad. The day after's not that great, but
yeah.
Yeah. So Venezuela, I was down there for 3 years, and then Mexico, I've kind of been in and out of, which is cool too. I mean, I tell people this all the time. I don't know if this is not the most politically correct thing in the world to say, but Mexico is like America with tan people that speak Spanish. I mean, when I got down there, I had a envision in my mind of what was going to be down there, and the first thing I see when I get off the plane is there's a Lowe's right next to the airport, like a Lowe's, warehouse or hardware store. So that wasn't too big of a shock, and I'm getting a little bit better with Spanish. I still should be way better, but definitely fun experiences, man. That's one thing baseball's given me, and I'll forever be grateful of that. Of just seeing other people's cultures and not being kind of closed-minded to stuff. There's some stuff seeing a mother holding a baby, like digging through trash in Venezuela for food is not. It's pretty unsettling when you come from a place like this, but I think I'm grateful for seeing that and seeing some of those situations and realizing how good we have it here, and I think it's kind of minimized my complaining. I don't think Irv would agree with that, but I think it does. And that's been one of my top things for sure that baseball's given me is being able to travel and seeing other cultures.
Yeah. Last year for you, I'm kind of curious about as well. Such a weird, good year for you, but I know kind of behind the scenes, you and I were talking a lot about how frustrating it was to maybe not get that opportunity. Did last year, and I don't mean to ask it in a negative or disrespectful way. I know you know me well enough to know this, but did it feel like kind of a last chance year for you to get that opportunity?
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like maybe at that point I was looking at it like that. Now you kind of see I don't think 30 is that far away from 29, so it might not have been exactly the last ditch effort, but it definitely was frustrating at the time. Sitting there thinking to myself before the season, like, all right, we'll see if we can't give affiliates one more shot. Hopefully, I'll do well enough that they can, take a look. And I'm not sure I really could have done anything more last year, so it definitely was frustrating during the season at least. And I know, like you said, we talked about it multiple times. I tried to keep the blinders on during the year as much as possible, but it was it definitely got a little glaring and frustrating. And it's almost even more frustrating when you got obviously I've been in the league for parts of 4 years now, and knowing guys in the league and just every road trip guys coming up being like, what are you still doing here? Like how like, should I quit if you're not getting out of here? Because I don't know what I could be doing better. So it's definitely, it was just a little reminder. It was cool. I mean, I guess it's a good thing to have guys say to you. Means I was doing well, but at the same time, it was definitely frustrating to have to keep saying, I don't know what's going on. So.
Yeah, is there kind of a funky taste in your mouth from the last time you were in affiliated ball too? Because I mean, you pitched well. I know you enjoyed the time in the Yankee system, but you pitched well. But it was such a short stay, kind of wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. Does that factor into your mind as well when you think about kind of getting a chance to get back?
It did. I don't think it does anymore. Because you stay in this game long enough, you see things that just don't make sense, and I think at the core of all these decisions, I don't think there's really any personal things about it. I think it all comes down to money, spots, moves they got to make, stuff that happens, and like you said, it was kind of wrong place at wrong time when Nathan Eovaldi got hurt up in the big leagues, and there was just a big trickle down of AAA guys coming to AA, some guys in the big leagues coming down to AAA, and again, it would have been easier if I had like a 5.5 ERA and not really doing as well as I thought I would, but
yeah.
Being told that you're going down to extended spring training at 26 when you're sitting in AA with a 1.2 ERA is a little surprising, I guess, is the word.
Yes, probably the last baseball question I have for you is probably the question that I think would be on a lot of people's minds for you going forward is what does the career kind of entail going forward? You're probably one of the, at least officially, the hottest kind of free agents in the indie world and overseas world and whatever. So what can you talk about as far as your plans going forward are?
To be honest, man, right now, I feel like the only thing I can do and the only thing that's good for my psyche is to just take it day by day. I don't know if actually this is official yet, so it might be breaking news, but I'm 99.7% sure I'm probably going to be coming back to the Patriots for at least another first half, and I'll be there for the whole year if that's what happens. But hopefully, I could come there and get a look somewhere else. But I'm happy to be doing that. I'm happy to have somewhere to play. Again, it's a little frustrating. My Mexican team didn't re-sign me and release my rights about a month or two ago. So yeah, I just trying to keep the blinders on at this point. I'm gonna just go out there and keep pitching, keep getting guys out, and we'll see what happens. I would love to, I had a little bit of interest from Korea. Some teams came out a few times last year to watch me pitch.
Yep.
Taiwan, yeah, I feel like I've been on that radar for a couple years now, and they're just kind of, I don't know exactly what's going on with that because I figured maybe I would have got a shot there last year, but you never know with these things. The timing is pretty much everything. So I'm just trying to go out there every game and get the guy who's in the box out, and that's kind of all I can think about right now because if I don't, I'll just drive myself nuts.
I guess with everything that's going on, I've kind of talked as well, and you're staying in shape, you're throwing and all that stuff. How weird of a time period is this, kind of not knowing, whoever you do end up signing with, when their season's even going to start?
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty unprecedented thing. I guess it's good for guys like me and other guys in the indie world. It kind of puts us on the same playing field as everybody else. I've been lucky enough to like I told you before, I'm down in Tampa, just kind of waiting everything out and working out and throwing. And luckily, with all the stuff going on and all these gyms being closed, I'm not going to give the name of the gym because I don't want to get nobody in trouble, but I've been training down here and our gym's still open and I've been throwing. It's been kind of business as usual. So it's definitely weird and it's a scary time for a lot of people, I'm sure. And if you're not staying in your house, stay the heck in your house. There's no reason to be outside right now. But yeah, just kind of going with the flow, and that's kind of all you can do at this point. There's no date of anything. Everything's in limbo. It's very weird, and I'm sure unsettling for a lot of guys like myself with no concrete job right now. So just taking it a day at a time, man.
Yeah. I do kind of want to ask about Dave Kubiak, the person. There was a lot of specific. I know. Yeah, there's a lot we can get into here, and there's a lot of specific stuff I felt like I could have asked about, but I wanted to kind of leave it open-ended because I know you're this, the big guy, a lot of tattoos, might scare a lot of people off who don't really know you, but you're one of the best people I've gotten to come across in doing this for a long time. I guess what off the field makes Dave Kubiak tick?
No, I appreciate that, man, and I know we've been friends now a few years, and I don't think I don't think I like nor do I want to like anybody else in the media as much as I do you, but
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Backhanded compliment for you. But I don't know, man. just try to have fun. I'm not too serious. Some people get a little turned off by that. But I think you just kind of got to hang with me and realize that maybe I haven't met too many people that haven't told me that the first 10, 15 minutes of being in my presence and knowing me, they thought they were going to hate me for the rest of their life and not want to be friends with somebody like me. But yeah, I'm a little loud, a little opinionated, but it's all coming from a good place, and I think I got a pretty good heart, and I just like having fun. You can't get bogged down with so much of the business and BS that comes with being in sports, and there's really no light at any proverbial end of any proverbial tunnel for us. You just got to keep grinding. So I think you kind of got to have that attitude of I'm just gonna let anything that comes along roll, and or else you're gonna drive yourself nuts. Like I said, it's a tough business for people who are overanalyze stuff a lot. But I've tried to be like in the last little while, a couple weeks and stuff, I've tried to be more present with stuff and realize that my career is not going to last forever. Baseball is not going to last forever. So I'm having a good time with it now. Hopefully I can, like you said, hopefully there's some miles left in the career. But, I'm having fun. I've had a great time playing baseball. It's been great. I've met copious amounts of people that I'll probably keep in touch with the rest of my life. So it's been good. There's no complaints.
Yeah, I guess on the flip side of that, have you always been able to kind of flip that switch? Because people kind of look at you off the field, and you're this big guy, loves to have fun, kind of goofy character sometimes, but on the field, at least to me, you've always been this intense, kick-ass competitor. That people always, maybe confuse the two, maybe blur the line between the two. Have you always been able to kind of flip that switch between who you are off the field and just kind of just shutting that off and just have that laser focus on the field like it seems like you do?
Yeah, I think I've kind of surprised some people on some game days. I'm not the guy that's going to be in the clubhouse headbanging and rah-rah, all this, but I think guys get a pretty good idea that once it's time for me to go to work and this is my life, this is what I'm trying to do, and I take it that deadly serious of once it, like I said, once it's game time, I'm not playing any games. I'm trying to eat, and I think guys get that and they see it, but it takes it a little while because my first couple starts, I'll have my headphones on or whatever, and I'm just getting in a little bit of a groove, and guys will come over because I'm goofy all the time and start talking to me or whatever, and I think they get pretty quick that it's like, all right, today's kind of not that day to talk to Dave.
Yeah.
But I like to keep it a little loose up until about an hour and a half or so before the game, but then it's a no nonsense. I ain't doing. Obviously, I'm playing baseball for fun, but this isn't for my health. I'm trying to eat.
Yeah, you one of those guys who's cranking your own music? Most guys do, cranking your own music in the clubhouse before your start, or?
I'm actually usually putting my music on the days that I don't start on the sound system, at least in there, because usually the days that I'm throwing, I'll throw my headphones in, and I kind of like to get in my own world a little bit. But there's a lot of guys. Rick is a big on his day. We're blaring EDM for 2.5, 3 hours before the game, so he's on the aux cord. But I'm pretty self-isolating, I guess, for that last 2 hours. So I don't, I just let the guys get ready how they want to get ready, and I just know that I'm in my zone.
Yeah. Do you have any go-tos that you put on in the headphones, or does it kind of evolve over time, or how does that go?
Big hip-hop guy. Yep. Always been a hip-hop guy. A lot of old 90s hip-hop is probably my biggest, most listened to genre of music, but I like a lot of new stuff now, some new stuff now. Go-tos. I think the one song that I've always listened to at least once, usually it's like right before I go out, is that song Ooh by Young M.A.
Okay.
I don't know know if any, I'm sure some people will know what it is, but that's usually my one go-to song I got to hear before I go out. Other than that, I just press the shuffle and try to get in my mind right.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got the time to get a chance to know Dave Kubiak, the ball player and the person. I'd love to ask you about your favorite Mike Ashmore story on the road, but I'm afraid we're all out of time and we can't get into that.
Oh man, well, it's definitely it rains once in a while.
Yeah. Yes. The weather. It's all about the weather. All about the weather.
It can get a little hectic.
Yes, it's all about the weather, my friend. But I'm glad we were able to keep things sunny in this conversation, sir. I appreciate you taking the time for me. And it has been a pleasure to cover your career. And I'm glad that it sounds like, at least with the breaking news that you dropped, that I'll get a chance to, whenever this season does start, get a chance to be around you a little bit more this upcoming year.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me. And like I said, one of my favorites and only media guys. But no, it's all love, man. You've been unbelievable to me ever since I got to Somerset, so I'll always be here for you.
Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast. I'm, of course, Mike Ashmore. We've lined up a couple more guests going forward, some more Atlantic League names that you'll be familiar with, maybe some guys who got some big league time as well. Ooh, little teaser. So we've got some fun stuff coming up for you going forward. Hope you guys like the intro. Trying a bunch of different stuff here as we're kind of in the infancy of starting the podcast. It's a little bit of a nod to my dad. My dad was a big Eric Clapton fan, is a big Eric Clapton fan, and a little bit of a nod to him. So it also means we probably can't monetize the videos, but that's okay. Just trying to do this to have fun and give you guys some cool content that you guys can look forward to in these challenging times that we have here. So again, stay safe. Stay inside and wash your damn hands. I'm Mike Ashmore, and I hope you guys enjoyed this installment of the Untitled Mike Ashmore podcast.